Hello and welcome to the Underscored podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Kent, spokesperson and public relations manager for Young Voices. This is a podcast brought to you by Young Voices, all about the things that are going on around the country that matter a great deal, but aren't getting quite enough attention. We're very excited to announce that we are headed into award season here at Young Voices. Last year, we started offering the Young Voices Award, which goes to a young writer somewhere in Young Voices roster around the country, or really even the world, who is doing important work and really raising awareness to an important issue that they write about. Last year's award winner was a young guy named Nolan Gray in New York City, who writes a lot on issues of city planning and market urbanism. So sort of city planning with a bottom-up approach. Really fascinating stuff. He does really important work. This year we are offering the 2019 Young Voices Award, and we have nominees. And this podcast is going to take some time over the next couple of weeks to release interviews with all three of those nominees so you can get to know them a little bit better and be more familiar with the work that they are doing. So we have nominees Molly Davis, Matthew LaRosiere, and Jared Labor, all fantastic writers. Two based in Washington, D.C., and then Molly Davis is based in Utah. This week, I'm going to be talking to Molly. I had her on the podcast to speak with her about one of her most recent pieces that was published in Wired Online. That is the tech and innovation magazine and online outlet. Fantastic piece about digital privacy legislation that recently passed in the state of Utah and could provide a model for other states to follow when it comes to protecting civil liberties in the area of digital privacy. So without any further ado, I'm going to skip to this conversation that I had with Molly the other day so you can get to know her and hear about her work. You are one of the nominees for the 2019 Young Voices Award. Congratulations! You've had a great year of work in Young Voices ranks, and just big congrats. We've got a couple of really awesome judges who are going to be picking winner for this year's award, and I'm so excited that you are one of the nominees.
Yeah, I'm really excited to come out to DC and also meet everyone from the Young Voices team because I haven't been able to do that yet. But I was I was pleasantly surprised when I got chosen as a nominee. So it's great.
Well, I'm not surprised at all. You've been really consistent in your output and sort of your issue areas of focus in Young Voices, which has been, criminal justice issues, issues of policing. That's been something that has been sort of top of mind with you, fairness under the law. What got you interested in that sort of bucket of issues before we go into your piece, which got you the most attention from our staff?
Yeah. Well, I hate to sound too stereotypical for the libertarian kind of liberty movement realm, but it was really the student organizations. When I was in college at Rocky Mountain College, I was involved in Young Americans for Liberty and Students for Sensible Drug Policy. And those organizations, being a part of those and starting chapters on my college campus, really introduced me to a range of ideas and a lot of corruption that was going on within the criminal justice system. And I was kind of fueled starting from there. And I was able to continue that passion into my work out here in Utah. So it's something I do in my day job, and I enjoy writing about it and researching it in my free time as well.
I wanted to say it wasn't stereotypical, but that was similar to my experience as well. But you know what? It's a beautiful thing. You wrote in Wired about how Utah became a leader in digital privacy. Two things. One, congratulations on being in Wired. That is a first for anyone from Young Voices. And it's not something I see often from kind of the libertarian policy community. So just big applause to you. And then two, what is going on in Utah that has sort of been, I guess, such a catalyst for possible change across the country? How are they going to be a leader in digital privacy?
Yeah, well, first, thank you. You helped me get there, so it's been great to get that publication. But Utah, a lot of states have been talking about digital privacy from the private market aspect, and not from the kind of privacy from government or law enforcement aspect. And that's really where our interest lies in Utah. I work for a think tank called Libertas Institute, and we helped work on this bill and do some public education with it. And so our concern is that when you store something on your phone or your computer or any device that you use in your everyday life, a lot of people think that information that they put on there is private. And if it's stored within your phone, it is private. Police have to have a warrant to enter your phone and access that information. But when the data is stored in a third party, such as Verizon or Facebook or Dropbox, whatever it may be, there's no lawful protections right now. And there's no court decisions really to have broad sweeping protections of that data from warrantless searches. And so that's what our bill did this year in Utah. We protected all of that data by saying that law enforcement must obtain a warrant to access that data before they can invade your privacy in that way.
I don't think most people who have smartphones or computers think very much about just how vulnerable their private information, their conversations, things like their photos are to entities like law enforcement. We often think about the threat being, hackers and sort of people who actively invade your privacy in that way. And I'm reminded of a story that I had heard about on NPR, and you're going to have to forgive me because I'm fuzzy on the details, but it was an incident where someone died under suspicious causes in a hot tub in the state of Washington, and police in that area were trying to find out what happened in the house that night, if there were any sort of arguments or if there was any sort of reason to be suspicious of wrongdoing in the death of that person. And they had issued a warrant or request to sort of get information from Amazon about the conversations that were heard by Alexa. The fact of the matter is that she is listening, and Amazon stores that information. Google stores that information from their Google Home devices. That's just the way that it is, but we don't often think about these devices in that way. Does that pertain directly to sort of what you're dealing with here in the Utah situation?
Yeah, definitely. Alexa, any Google, all of our stuff is stored in these third parties nowadays. And so people don't even think about it, but they're medical documents, financial documents within banking apps and things they use. So it's not just like pictures and text messages and phone call records. It goes it's much broader and goes far beyond that. And the kind of what spurred, I think what helped the Utah legislature in their decision to pass this bill was the Carpenter case, which was a Supreme Court case from last summer. And it's specifically concerning the privacy of cell phone location records. And so the Supreme Court ruled last summer that information specifically is privacy. But in the decision, they also stated that this is an issue that state legislatures need to be active on and need to be legislating. And so that is what Utah did.
What can you tell me about third-party doctrine, this sort of legal theory that came from the Supreme Court, and how that factors into all of this?
Yeah, this is kind of a good example of where the law is lacking and court rulings are lacking to protect our data. This is just one legal theory that has been held all across the U.S. It's a very low standard to have access to your information and your data, and it's just been, I think, overly and misapplied to so many different areas of your life. And so, like I said, it's just a legal theory. It's just kind of something that's used in the courts. It's not written in any law or codified in any states that I know of. And so that's why states need to be proactive and kind of defining those things and making sure that they put privacy protections in place, or else the court will come up with all of these their own rules.
Molly, there's been a lot of conversation, particularly in the Democratic primary for the 2020 campaign, about thinking about the value of your data in monetary terms, that companies are getting rich off of knowing little things about you, selling that to advertisers, and monetizing it for themselves, but you are largely left out of the equation when it comes to being compensated for the information that is being shared about you. I've heard sort of this rush for data be described as like a new gold rush or a new oil boom. It's sort of the new natural resource that big moneyed interests are taking advantage of. Do you think about data in that way, sort of in monetary terms?
Yeah, that's difficult because I think there's definitely some data that is that's way more valuable than others. But I mean, it definitely does have value. I mean, we can see that with how this whole privacy debate was kind of sparked in the first place a few years back with the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal and the delete Facebook, and how different organizations were using people's Facebook data, selling it so that there could be targeted ad campaigns and things for the 2016 election. And that was the first time I think that the masses kind of heard about this issue and really started to care about it. And so I'm not sure policy-wise how moving forward, how we're going to be able to legislate and protect people's data when there is certainly value in that. And, when you sign on Facebook and when you sign on Instagram, whatever social media app that it may be, you do always have to sign terms and agreements. But that's another huge problem that nobody's talking about, is nobody actually reads through. The average person can't consume all of that and understand it unless they have a lawyer or a team of specialists to read through the pages and pages of legal
Is that part
text.
of the problem? I mean, is that kind of part of the problem, that your rights and sort of the terms of agreement need to be simplified and should be simplified under the law?
Yeah, totally. People don't have any idea what they're signing off to. I mean, I don't even read the terms of I probably should, but the terms of agreement when just kind of, it's just sort of something that pops up, and we always are used to saying, yes, I agree, and then on to using the app. So
back in the early days of Facebook, South Park did an episode. South Park did an episode crossing over this very issue of the terms of agreement for iTunes, and how little people read or understand what is actually in them, to the horror movie The Human Centipede, where the characters were all sort of they all agreed to be part of a human centipede and endure that for the rest of their lives.
I know what you're talking about. I know.
Through the iTunes user agreement. And that was the first time, and it's stuck in my head for years, that I was ever faced with thinking about just sort of how absurd it is that when you agree to a music streaming platform, that you can't even read or understand what you've just done. That doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm just here to put my music files. What all do you want from me? So I'll just hit agree. But it often is much more complicated.
Right. And how we utilize our phone in different ways. There's things that we don't fully understand legally yet. As far as like utilizing the fingerprint on your phone to open your phone, like that's common on almost every iPhone. And the new ones, the facial scan, biometric data, that sort of thing doesn't have that many protections under the law yet. So we're definitely entering a more interesting and unsafe kind of landscape as we move on with technology.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be the government and who was going to have my eye records and my retina on file and my thumbprint. I didn't really know that Silicon Valley were going to be the ones who were holding the keys to all that information on me. Big Brother is not exactly what I thought it would be.
Yeah. And Amazon, I'm trying to remember of their facial recognition tool, but they're selling it to law enforcement groups to help them be able to utilize biometric data in that way. So there's a weird intersection there.
That's incredibly alarming. So what if Utah is sort of setting the standard, just to round down, who are they setting the standard for? Is this a state-based policy approach, or do you want to see Congress take some of the lessons that have been applied in Utah?
I hope it spreads to other states. I think that Congress takes forever to legislate. The Supreme Court takes, years and years. I'm not sure who's slower. And so we can't wait on a federal level to protect people's privacy rights. I think other state legislatures, a lot of them meet yearly, and they need to be proactive about this. It's a really important policy. We created great model language that can be adopted elsewhere. And so this is something that state legislatures should absolutely be implementing in the next few years.
I think I know the answer to your question. I think it is Congress, thus the reason the Supreme Court has to weigh in on so many issues that Congress has punted on.
Yeah, definitely.
Molly Davis, it has been a pleasure talking to you about this. Before we round down completely, I wanted to ask you just a little bit about your experience in Young Voices. It's been, maybe we've had you for about 6 to 8 months at the most, and you've already kind of got this great award nomination. We're really excited to fly you into DC. If you could tell anybody about some of your experience, what you've gained from the program, and maybe why they should apply to Young Voices as well, I'd love to hear from you about that, because sometimes I don't even have the right perspective as somebody who works here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this has been a great program for personal and professional development. I think honing in your writing skills and getting an outsider's perspective on how you can improve is always, always great. This is a program I've recommended to so many people. I've already kind of messaged some of my college professors to see if they have anyone who they'd recommend for the program. Like anyone I know, I tell about it because I think it's been so great for me. And it is difficult sometimes to get constructive criticism, as in any aspect of life, that's the case. But looking back at how much I've improved is pretty incredible to see the differences between the first op-eds I was writing, even though it's only been like 6 to 8 months, to where I'm writing now, and how much more of better understanding I have of the media and the pitching process and everything that's involved there. So yeah, it's really been incredible, and I'm definitely grateful to be a part of Young Voices.
We're very, very happy to hear that. I know my experiences working with some of our editors and being edited and sort of receiving that feedback. It's sort of, you would think that it would be off-putting or that would make you feel badly, but no one has ever sort of guided me as positively and constructively as Young Voices staff here.
Definitely.
So I'm glad that's been your experience as well. Molly Davis, we'll see you next week in Washington, D.C. Congratulations again on your nomination for the Young Voices Award, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
All right, that's Molly Davis, everybody. She will be in Washington, D.C. on May 2nd for the Young Voices Party, where we'll be celebrating being 3 years old as an organization and a second year of giving out this award. We're really excited for our nominees, Molly Davis, Matthew LaRosiere, and Jared Labor, and all the great work that they are doing. Hopefully we'll see you there. If you're someone who listens to this podcast, you should reach out for information about where we will be having this soiree. With that is the end of this week's Underscored podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can find out more information about Young Voices at young-voices.com, and you can also find out how to apply to Young Voices on the website. We are always now taking applications for new writers and contributors, so this is your chance to get involved and be heard. You can find me on Twitter at Stephen_Kent89. That's Stephen with a PH _Kent89, and Young Voices at YBADV. Hope you'll follow us, engage us in a little conversation, and we'll be back next week with a conversation from Matthew LaRosiere, one of the other nominees for the Young Voices Award. Until then, stay free.